remember the first time that I met him. So the funny thing with Chris is this, so we were 18 years old. On my height, so I'm 6 feet. Chris was about 6'1" at the time. I shake his hand, I'm like, you know, it's like this dude's not 6'1", should be about 6'5". See his levers? I'm like, yeah, it's just, so he grew into himself a little bit over the years. I remember us wrestling one time. I don't know why the heck I decided to do that with him. That was, you know, he's got me down, and he's like, I got you, just wrestling me, and I'm like, oh dear Lord, what the heck did I get myself into with this? Thank God he let me go. But over the years, we, you know, went through the dorms, and then a few years later, we lived together for a few months, one summer, 1988, and then again in 1989 to 91 with Todd Anderson. We lived on 354 South 10th Street. We had a good time over there. That was a nice couple of years. And then we eventually all moved out and did some different things. And Chris graduated about a year and a half later, started at Lamb. Over the years, I always thought, this is the only place. We didn't think Chris would be the guy who would stay at one company for 30 years. You know, we thought maybe he would be the guy who would kind of bounce around and do some other things. I always found that kind of amazing. Wanted to say one thing with Chris was there were a lot of things that he was picky about, didn't like. He never said a bad word about his managers. And I, you know, came up and talked, and that always made me happy that he had somebody who really supported him in that realm, because we know if we don't have a good manager on our job, things can get really squirrely. So I was always happy for that. We, over the last few years since the pandemic, we caught up and we were talking a lot, which was wonderful for me. I had just lost my wife, and he was one of the people, group of friends, who was very comforting. We talked at least once a week, and it was nice to be able to catch up on things, talk about his kids, talk about Joyce, of course, and talk about a lot of other things, because that was such a weird time. I was by myself at home, you know, he was doing things. A lot of times he would call me at about, say, 10, 11 p.m. I mean, where did we have to go the next day? I'd hear stuff, I'm like, what are you doing, Chris? And he says, oh, hold on a sec. Yeah, I'm just banging on some stuff down here in the basement. I'm fixing, you know, Jesus, Chris, it's like, I mean, I know you're gonna fix stuff, but good luck. So you're digging ditches and you're doing this other stuff. God, it's like, you're 50 plus years old, you're still doing it. I'm like, it's awesome. We had some Yogi Berra-isms, misnomers that we shared. We'd write them down. And the last one that I shared with him was my father at one point had told me, he had reminded me of something that had happened like 30 years prior. And he was all pissed off about it. And I just said to him, I said, Dad, you seem to forget that I have a good memory. So, the last one and I had talked to Joyce about this, he had told me this. My dad was a widower before, you know, he lived 6 years longer. So he told me something one time. He said, when you become a widow, you become a lifetime member. And I thought about that, I'm like, it's pretty good. You know, it's pretty interesting. But the last thing I was going to share here is, a couple of years ago, I was digging through a closet. This was during the pandemic. I found this at the bottom of the closet. There we go. Yeah, I see. Just keep going. So I had a 1979 Rabbit. I actually bought this from Todd, and we had these. It's the oil drain place too. So it's a 79 Rabbit. It had standard ignition. So I had bought this. I mean, I got rid of the car in 2000. I must have bought this around 1998 or something like that. The last thing I'll leave you with on this is fun stories with Chris. Like I think one of the funny stories is, so because the car didn't require unleaded gas and it was standard ignition, it was really hard to pass smog the last few years I had it. So in order for it to pass smog, basically I knew a guy at a gas station, he would have to tweak the heck out of it. And one time, he even pulled the thing about halfway out of the exhaust, got it to pass. So the thing is that it was running really lean, I don't know, it was way advanced or something, the timing was way advanced. And I had a hard time getting the car out, and I'd get home, I'd call Chris, and he says, oh, bring it over tonight, what the heck, well, I'll tune it up for you as well. And I would be dinking around with it, just getting it to run. The damn thing would stall on me, all this stuff, and trying to get it riched up, and then I got it too rich. And anyway, I'd get it over to his house, and he's like, hey, you got it over here. So he was always kind of like commending me that I could figure that much out. And then I pulled into the garage, and then he's like, hey, start it up. And I'm like, okay. So pull the hood. First thing he would do is because it was just running so badly, and he just raised a vroom, bam, there'd be a big backfire. And he's just totally cracking up, it's a total Chris thing. He's just all goofy about it. Then over the next hour or so, he'd have either I'd have the parts or he would. I could never gap the plugs I could gap, but the points I always had a hard time with. And so he would do all the stuff. He would do a compression test. He would do a bunch of other stuff just to make sure that the engine was still in pretty good shape. And he just had a blast doing it with me. He says, because I would say, Chris, thanks so much. It's like a Tuesday night, blah, blah, blah. He says, I love working on the cars. He says, I love the fact that you do your best to take care of it. And he says, it's just fun that you still do this. And I just think about, I'm working on my kitchen right now. I'm not the handiest person, but damn it, I'm gonna do the whole thing as much as I can myself. And I had told Chris about this a few months ago, but I've been pulling up the floors, doing some stuff, and I was exhausted some nights. And I went an extra hour or two, and it was solely on grit and guts thinking about him. And it was like dedicating this whole project to him, basically. And I can't wait to get it finished. And I appreciate all his help and love over the years, and I certainly miss him, but he's in my thoughts every single day. Thank you, guys. Oh, Jonah, I'd like you to come up if you can.